Hi guys, just gonna drive home, enjoy the view, and I just wanted you to listen to the New Zealand Kiwi accent. It's quite unique English, coming from the Philippines with American English. So this is quite different, guys. So enjoy the drive, the view of Auckland, plus Kiwi accent, New Zealand. Okay.
Working days of the broadcast. To find out about those standards or to lodge a complaint, go to rnz.co.nz and type formal complaint into our search engine. You'll be directed to our formal complaints page. The standards were prepared by broadcasters including RNZ.
Kei te whakarongo mai koe ki te reo irirangi o Aotearoa. Jesse Mulligan is next. Right now it's time for the short forecast from Met Service at midnight Saturday. Northland to Taranaki, including Coromandel Peninsula, Taupo and Taumaranui. Fine spells and a few showers for Bay of Plenty and Rotorua, showers clearing to fine tomorrow morning. Gisborne and Hawke's Bay, showers, possibly heavy with thunderstorms inland today, clearing tonight but returning tomorrow afternoon. Whanganui to Wellington, Taihape and Wairarapa, isolated showers clearing from the afternoon. Showers in the west tomorrow morning and everywhere tomorrow afternoon, possibly heavy. Nelson, Marlborough and Canterbury, late evening showers for Nelson, and showers everywhere tomorrow, possible thunderstorms from the afternoon. Bulla, Westland and Fiordland, showers, but rain for a time today with possible thunderstorms in Fiordland until evening. Showers clearing south of Greymouth tomorrow morning. Otago and Southland, a few showers developing this afternoon, possibly heavy, clearing to fine tomorrow afternoon or evening. And for the Chatham Islands, cloudy with rain developing this afternoon. RNZ National at 6 minutes past 1. I'll have headlines at 1:30 and news and weather again at 2.
Welcome to Friday with Jesse Mulligan with you from now until about 3:45. This beautiful music is the sound of Phoebe Riggs.
They should have become extinct.
That's the latest. BBC News.
Welcome everyone. Fergus Nichol here with the BBC's Business Matters. In a moment, our main headline: US senators have agreed to extend the country's debt ceiling for 2 months after the Republicans dropped their opposition to the increase. We'll dig into the detail. Also on the programme today, life on the fringes of Africa's biggest garbage dump.
The main food comes from the airport, from the different airlines that is being thrown here. Burger, bread, maybe not so fresh.
And perhaps the most difficult vaccine delivery mission yet, all the way to Antarctica.
It's just proof that when people work together in a really collaborative way, absolutely anything is possible. When we use all the means that are available to us, you absolutely can take the vaccine anywhere on Earth.
Let's greet our guests. Joining us on Business Matters today from New York this evening, Alison Schrager's Senior Fellow at the Manhattan Institute, also contributing editor at City Journal. Alison, good to have you back on the programme. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. And let's say good morning to Enda Curran, Chief Asia Economics Correspondent for Bloomberg News. And Enda's in Hong Kong this morning. Hello, Enda.
Indeed. Good morning, Fergus and Alison. It's great to be on.
Good to have you back. Thanks so much. We have a lot to get our teeth into. We're going to start in the United States, in Washington, D.C. Now, if you were with us at the end of September, just a week or so ago, you'd have heard us talking about 3 intertwined economic strands that were involved in all the arguments currently going on Capitol Hill in Washington. The first was a looming government shutdown. Well, that one was solved, or at least postponed for another couple of months. The second involved a federal government debt, and that all came to a head today. To keep paying for crucial aspects of the federal budget, the debt limit needed to be lifted, and amazingly, given the almost constant friction in Washington, it seems bipartisan agreement has been achieved on this as well. although this issue too will be back soon enough, as the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer conceded.
We have reached agreement to extend the debt ceiling through early December, and it's our hope that we can get this done as soon as today. I yield the floor.
Yeah, that's the key phrase, through early December. We'll get to the third strand, by the way, in a moment. That is the Biden administration's plans for up to $4 trillion worth of infrastructure, social measures in a post-COVID relief package. But let's deal with the first two. First of all, is this cause for celebration? 2 deals in less than a week? Bipartisanship running riot? Lauren Fader has been covering the debates for the FT in Washington.
I think what we're seeing here is what we've seen Congress do time and time again, and that's kicking the can down the road. So they are celebrating these deals because in the very short term, they've averted crises. They've avoided a government shutdown, which would have led to hundreds of thousands of federal employees being out of work. And now it looks like in a matter of a couple of hours, there should be a vote on the Senate floor that will avoid this catastrophic default that everyone, investors, companies, foreign policy experts have all been warning would be disastrous, not only for the U.S. economy, but for the global economy, were the government to run out of money. But it is a stopgap measure, as you say. You know, this is going to make sure that the coffers are filled until December, and we'll probably be reaching a pressure point again in the run-up to Christmas on this one.
To get a bipartisan agreement of any kind, somebody has to give and somebody has to get. Do we know who?
Sure. So, you know, I think we have seen true compromise here in the sense that both sides have given a little. In the case of the Democrats, originally, they wanted to tie government funding to the debt ceiling. Then they wanted to make sure that Republicans cleared the path for them to raise the debt ceiling over a kind of longer time horizon. Ultimately, Chuck Schumer, the Senate's top Democrat, has come to this agreement with Mitch McConnell, his Republican counterpart, to accept this very short-term deal. Now, on the other side of the ledger, when it comes to McConnell and the Republicans, he has conceded as well because for months he's been saying he won't sign on to a debt ceiling increase of really any kind. And obviously he's doing that here and now for at least a couple more months. And, you know, some of his members of his own party have pushed back on this a bit, you know, said that he gave too much. But from the, you know, leader's point of view, he clearly made a calculation that this was the, not only economically, but he's always got his politician hat on, the politically savvy thing to do here.
Are both sides already, as we speak, preparing for the next round in early December, thinking, what could we give if we have to, what should we try to get?
Oh, absolutely. So, you know, we already have the Democrats are continuing to maintain that they will not use this very complicated procedure called reconciliation, which is what the Republicans want them to do. They're digging their heels in and saying, absolutely not, we won't be going down that road the next couple of months. At the same time, Mitch McConnell, even though he did concede, even though he offered this concession yesterday and again today, he did it in a pretty backhanded way. He offered the concession on the Senate floor and then immediately followed that up by bashing Democrats and blaming them for the mess that we find ourselves in.
The last time we spoke, Lauren, we talked about a third strand, which is a complex and at least 2-part infrastructure social improvement measure package that the Biden administration wants to get through. We talked a bit about bipartisanship. We talked also a bit about internal fighting with progressives within the Democratic Party wanting much more from Mr. Biden. Where are we with those strands?
Well, so in that case, the infighting within the Democratic Party continues. It's still very much an intra-Democratic Party issue, although there has been some progress. There seems to be a widespread understanding now when it comes to the White House, when it comes to the progressives in the House of Representatives, as well as some of the members of the Senate, that ultimately that bigger social investment package, which originally had a price tag of $3.5 trillion, there's a widespread consensus now that that number will have to come down. That package will have to shrink, and that will be in order to satisfy the demands of a handful of very powerful moderates within the party. There are 2 senators in particular, Joe Manchin from West Virginia and Kristen Sinema from Arizona. They wield a lot of power because the Senate, the Democrats control that with that 50-50 split, so any one senator could throw a wrench in the plan. But there is an expectation, like I said, that this package will shrink. The question now is by how much and what will have to be cut. So there's a very robust debate happening already, and you can expect it to continue throughout the month about what policy proposals and ambitions that the White House has will ultimately be left on the cutting room floor.
This is possibly an excessively cynical question, but we are, believe it or not, just a little over a year away from yet another election in the US, the midterms. Is this part of that?
it's absolutely on everyone's mind in Washington. I mean, even more pressing than that, the president's approval ratings have continued to decline over the last couple of months. They've reached a kind of all-time low this week. That's certainly causing concern among the White House and among congressional Democrats with an eye towards next year. But even sooner than that, there's actually a very closely watched governor's race in Virginia, where Virginia is a state that Joe Biden won by 10 points 1 year ago. And now that race is seen as very much a toss-up between the Democrat and the Republican. They're neck and neck. And if the Republican wins in that race, you'll certainly see a lot of trepidation among Democrats about what next year might look like for them.
Our thanks to Lauren Fader, who's covering the debates on Capitol Hill for the Financial Times in D.C. A couple of phrases in that interview revealed, of course, as I'm sure you noticed, that we take the interview before the vote happened. That vote has happened while we've been on air, 61-38. A very convincing passing, I think you'd say, under current circumstances. Alison, is it to be welcomed?
I think for sure. I mean, she brings up a good point, though, that, you know, we're all probably going to be here again in a couple months. Although I think even what's notable about this latest drama is markets even really sort of barely shrugged these last couple weeks, because it feels like we go through this every couple of years, and in the end, you know, we get put through a lot of drama. We're told continuously how focusing on our debt will be a big disaster, and ultimately something's always passed and we muddle through.
Yeah, and it's true, isn't it? Because it's hard to feel there's no one to feel sympathetic for. If the government shuts down, which was the other point we were talking about last week, and we'll no doubt, as you say, be talking about again in December, that's real people, needing money for the holiday season.
Exactly, and you know, it all comes down. I mean, this is a debt limit that we've put on ourselves and requires Congress to do its job, and you know, to find this extension, and it just can't do it. So it's hard to find sympathy on either side. Especially as each side points out, one of the reasons for going so far above the debt limit is each side has passed big spending increases over the years or tax cuts. That's one of the reasons why we overspend so much.
Every cycle, I'm sure you're the same, you're kind of thinking, oh God, don't talk about the midterms yet, don't talk, it's another whole year to go. And we start talking about it already because these are point-scoring exercises to some extent at the political level.
Yeah, I mean, everyone sort of wants to go to heaven, but no one wants to die here. I mean, everyone wants lower taxes, wants more services, but we also don't want large budget deficits. So, you know, every party kind of wants to give these in some sort of odd combination, which is why we keep ending up here.
I want to just look at the numbers, though, and I'll bring Enda in here, listening in Hong Kong this morning. There's this kind of endlessly riveting website, just because it just moves so much, the usdebtclock.org site, currently reading 28 trillion 849, 600. I mean, the numbers move so fast it's impossible to keep up. Do people outside the US look at these numbers and go, how can a country function like this?
Oh, look, this issue is front and center for global markets. I mean, like Alison says, ultimately, it's so serious that people expect that there will be a resolution. You know, it's so serious that people don't really expect the US will default. But if they were to, you know, the ultimate fulcrum of global markets, because the US is in control of the reserve currency. I would say, though, more broadly, even quite apart from the US debt debate, I think coming out of the pandemic, we're going to see a lot of governments around the world debating how to raise revenues, given the amount of borrowing they have to do.
Yeah, absolutely. On that point, Alison said, the markets kind of shrugged it off because they were expecting this to be resolved, and maybe for the same reasons that you just said. But am I right in thinking that Asian markets kind of didn't shrug this off because there's been quite a bit of anxiety rippling out from the States?
Well, there certainly has been anxiety among, Asian markets are very volatile. Typically speaking, they're vulnerable to flows of capital in and out, especially from US investors. And the signals coming from the US haven't just been, concerning on the debt ceiling. There's also the internal debate going on about the whole economic policy that the Biden administration is pursuing. There seems to be a lot of division now in terms of that $4 trillion package and the eventual shape that it does take. So I think, this part of the world, the developing world, is certainly keeping a close eye on what does happen out of DC. And the other point I should say is the upcoming appointment of the Fed chair, the Federal Reserve chair. That's going to be an important one for emerging markets too. Okay, thanks for that. Quick one back to talking about any elections. Alison, are you ever going to see an American politician campaigning on the debt as an issue, or the campaign's always about keeping the good times rolling?
Well, I think as long as interest rates are low and inflation is low, probably, we'll talk about keeping the good times rolling or just blaming the other side for increasing the debt. But if interest rates get really high and interest payments start becoming a big part of our budget and eating into other things people want, then I think a budget reduction all of a sudden could be popular. Depends how much, if the American people start feeling some pain around higher deficits.
Okay, hold that thought about inflation. We'll talk about that in the second half of the show. Going to hand you back to London. Moira's waiting patiently with our headlines, please.
The United States National Security Advisor has urged Russia not to exploit the energy crisis that's causing gas shortages across Europe. American senators have agreed to extend the country's debt ceiling for 2 months, averting a possible default on the national debt. The European Commission says it's seriously concerned by a Polish ruling that EU law doesn't take precedence over national legislation. And a Saudi consortium has bought the English Premier League football club Newcastle United, a move which critics say is an attempt to distract attention from Saudi Arabia's human rights record.
Thanks, Maura. More details on those headlines at past. Of course, this is Business Matters, live on the BBC World Service. China produced 1 billion tonnes of steel last year, a record amount. For decades, the leadership in Beijing's relied on vast construction projects as a way of keeping the economy growing. COVID did nothing to stop that, maybe briefly. But as it tries to work out how to meet its pledges on reducing carbon emissions, can the world's most polluting nation slow down quickly enough while still growing? Robin Brandt's been to China's steel city, Wuzhou, in the south.
China likes to build. Build, build, build has been the mantra here for decades.
I don't know what building you're listening to this in at the moment, but as I stroll across the concrete floor, 19 floors up in this empty building, let's do a bit of a crane count around, just to give you an idea of the scale. Right, one crane near us, 2, 3 a bit further away, much further.
And it goes on. Wuzhou is a small city by Chinese standards of 3 million people. Construction here is inescapable.
So lots of apartment building going on. This building's empty, the one next to us is empty, the one just over the road, a yellow apartment block, that is half empty.
In the built but almost empty shopping mall below, we found a group of young boys who were building. They were making walls from multicolored foam blocks. My dad drives a crane, one said to us. Then he lifted his arms together to show me what that looks like. Building is in their blood. Nearby, the grandpa who was looking after them was playing cards.
The development, it won't stop. I won't sell my houses in Wuzhou.
He told me that 10 years ago this part of the city was barren mountain ridges. Now you hear the trucks, you see the clusters of cranes, all evidence of a country that's still shifting its people to the cities. China produced 1 billion tonnes of steel last year, the most ever. Alongside burning coal for power generation, it's the most polluting industry. Some of that steel came from plants here in Wuzhou. They wouldn't let us in though, nor talk to us. The day before, we watched from a hillside as trucks moved in lines, chimneys bellowed.
All good, guys. Home sweet home. I'm home. Thanks for accompanying me during my drive home, and hope you enjoyed the New Zealand Kiwi accent. I'm just backing up in the driveway.
It's home for first-time buyer Zhongshin and her boyfriend and their ginger kitten. She told me building makes things better.
They are building a lot of apartments here, but also they will grow green plants. If they don't build buildings there, the land
All
will
good, guys. I'm home.
and the green land.
Thank you so much. Enjoy and see you. Keep safe and God bless to everyone. Bye.
Other countries are.